Hello, everyone, and welcome to Federal Trademark Searching, Field Tag Searching with Regular Expressions. I know that is a mouthful of a title, but don't worry, we're going to go in depth on all these things. So by the time you leave this webinar, you're going to understand everything we're talking about. I'm Jason Lott, the managing attorney for Trademarks Customer Outreach at the USPTO, and it is my job to teach you about trademarks, what they are, why they're important, and how the federal registration of your trademark can help you build your business. We have a great group of folks with me today to help explain federal trademark searching and especially field tags and regular expressions. We have Christina Calloway and Marisa Terrell along with Brandy Hill. And we also are lucky to have special guest attorney Tim Schimpf, who is one of the no, I will say it, the world's top expert on regular expression searching when it comes to the USPTO's trademark search system. So for those of you who are joining us right now and you just logged in or you just opened up the recording to take a peek at what we're talking about, hey, just so you know, this is an advanced level topic. So if you're just diving in right now, you might be a little lost. So I would recommend making sure you check out the Getting Started video and handout, as well as the field tag searching video and handout. That's going to give you a lot of the baseline information that you're going to need so you can really follow along with all the things we're going to talk about today. So a couple of quick disclaimers. As always, have to do with them. Look, this is what you get with attorneys. It's going to be a disclaimer. It's going to be a caveat. The answer is it depends. It's the same thing with lawyers everywhere. So just keep in mind, this program is not legal advice. Even though we have a bunch of attorneys on the call today, we are not allowed to provide legal advice, and so we are not doing so. This is just for informational purposes only. It doesn't cover all aspects of searching. It is really about the mechanics of using the USPTO's Federal Trademark Database Search System. All right, well, with that being out of the way, we're going to dive in and talk through the topics. And just wanted to put it out there, we are taking questions today. So if you do have a question throughout, look out for that Q&A box, bottom right-hand part of your screen. You're going to see three little dots. If you hit that, you'll see an option for the Q&A box. That's the way to give us your questions today. Totally fine if you don't have any, or if you want to hold on to them to the very end. I'm going to be taking live questions with any time that we have remaining. So if you want to pop them in there and say, hey, have Jason answer this later, totally cool. All right. So feel free to put in your questions today. If you're having tech issues, use the chat. Okay, that's how you can get a hold of Jay, who is our technician, and he'll be able to hook you up. Okay, so today we're going to talk through very briefly search system fundamentals. If you've attended the Getting Started or the field tag searching webinars, you already know some of these things. Really what we're going to be talking about are the options that you experienced folks are going to go into, and that is the field tags with regular expressions. This is an upper level way of using the search system. We're going to close it out with some searching takeaways, and of course, I'm going to answer as many questions as I can in any time we have remaining before we get out of here in about 57 minutes. So let's see what we can cover. All right, so as you know, because you've already attended other webinars or you've taken a look at the handouts, there are two ways to use the system. And I know this might seem elementary of, Jason, why are you talking about this again? We already know this, but I think it's very important because it helps us understand the way the system operates. And so that's going to affect our analysis of how we use the system. So as you have already learned, there is the very simple way of using the system. It's called drop-down searching, and this is for really, really basic one-term searching. Okay, this is mostly going to be used by folks who are not really familiar with the system and just kind of like popping in a word and kind of hoping for the best. You might think about it for a one-word knockout search or a very dead on search, or maybe you're using it to pull up a serial, you know, the serial number or the registration number, you want to pull up stuff. It's pretty limited, okay? So we say for most of you folks who are out there who are going to be conducting a clearance search to look for those potentially conflicting trademarks, drop-down search is probably not what you're going to want to go to. Instead, you're going to want to use field tag searching. So if you attended the field tag searching webinar, you already know about that stuff and you've already seen it before, so you'll be ready to rock and roll on this upper level way of using field tag searching. The other thing that you do want to keep in mind, and we've talked about this before, is there are two modes that you can also pull into play when you're using the system, the basic mode and the expert mode. And as you probably already know, basic is very much baseline functionality, right? That's what it is. Me personally, I'm probably never going to use it in basic mode. There just really isn't a reason to do so. There may be one sort of rare reason that you might use basic mode, but for the most part, expert mode is where you want to be. It is going to unlock more potential for you. So especially for you practitioners out there, paralegals, administrators, any trademark professionals, support staff, those of you who are going to be in the system a lot, you are most likely going to be in expert mode. And my guess is most of you are also going to be one logged into your USPTO.gov account. That's going to unlock those additional capabilities now and in the future with potential upgrades coming to the system. All right, so that's the basics, right? Okay, that's the fundamentals. You already know this stuff. And so what we're going to talk about now are field tags with regular expressions. So I will be honest with you folks, and this is probably a little embarrassing, when our developers and other folks in the USPTO started talking about, oh, well, you're just going to use regular expressions. I had no idea what they were talking about. Right? Now, I know you probably look at me and you're like, that guy, he probably spent his younger years in his parents' basement trying to, recode the Oregon Trail game so he didn't die of dysentery. I get it. I understand. I probably look like I'm a coder. I'm not. Okay. I unfortunately don't really know anything about how to code. So I had no idea what regular expressions were. And a couple of months ago, I was doing some training for a group of attorneys, and I was talking about regular expressions and how it's kind of like this weird looking language, and it's kind of like coding, and it can be kind of intimidating the first time you experience it. And after the presentation, after showing people how to use it, a guy came up to me and he said, Jason, I've been coding for a very long time. Regular expressions are not scary. They're nothing to be afraid of. I've done stuff that's way more complex than this. And I said, okay, thank you for the perspective, right? So for those of us who are new to it, it may seem a little overwhelming, but I'll tell you folks, it won't take long before you're like, oh, that's all it is? Okay, I got it, right? Very soon, like Neo, you're going to be able to read the matrix, okay? So what regular expressions are, it's really a programming language. And it's one of the reasons we're using it is our system is based on Amazon, the Amazon Web Services. And so some of the language we use comes from that. They're using regular expressions. So when we were developing the new search system, regular expression searching and those syntax is what we pulled in for building out our search system as well. Now, the great thing about it is that it gives you greater flexibility in constructing your searches as well as greater control. Here's the other great thing about it. This is optional, right? Everything that we're going to talk about over the next 50 minutes is all optional. It is up to you whether you want to use it or not. You do not have to learn how to use it. Now, some of you out there are going to go, yeah, absolutely, Jason, I want to use it. I want to be very efficient with my time. But there are going to be some of you out there like, nah, you know what, I'm good. I can do everything I need to do using regular field tag searching with the things that I've seen about asterisks and question marks and all that sort of stuff. Cool, great, absolutely. And I will tell you right now, the reason that you would use regular expression searching is when you want to do pattern matching. Okay, this allows you to more efficiently search in our database for phonetic equivalents and alternate spellings. So, for example, let's say that you were going to do a clearance search, you were going to register a trademark that had the word cat in it, and you wanted to look to see what other cat trademarks are out there. Well, you could hand jam in CM:CAT or CM:KAT or CM:QAT and so forth. You could write in all of the different phonetic equivalents for the word that you want to search. And I'll tell you right now, I did a joint presentation one time with a practitioner and he said, yeah, that's how I do it. Now, he's not going wild with all of his phonetic equivalents. He's going to do most of the main ones and hope that our pseudo mark field is going to pick up the sort of crazier stuff. But when he's doing some of his more general early on searching before he goes super in depth, he's not using regular expressions. He's just going to type it in. And you can do that if you want to. And it's a great way for you to be able to say, I know what I have searched. I've searched CAT, KAT, QAT, and so forth. Totally fine if you want to do it. But my guess is if you're a busy practitioner, you're a busy paralegal or administrator or support staff, whoever you happen to be, you want to jump into the system and knock out that search as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Well, regular expression searching, or regex as it's sometimes called, is the way you go about it. Now, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see it's kind of similar to field tag searching, but there's a couple little different things that are happening there. All right, I'm going to walk you through the real basics on the tips here, and then we're going to go more in depth so you can understand on a deeper level what we're talking about. Okay, this is just an intro, so don't feel like if you don't get it in the next 2 minutes, you're done. Not true. I'm going to give you more stuff. Okay. So as you can see down on the bottom of the screen, what we're trying to do here is look for phonetic equivalents of the word trademark. Now you might look at that and say, Jason, I don't see it. How in the world are you searching for phonetic equivalents of the word trademark? All I see is a bunch of gobbledygook down there at the bottom. Doesn't make any sense. It will. Trust me, you're soon going to be able to read the matrix. All right. So here's what you need to know about doing this phonetic equivalent searching. The first thing you have to do is trigger the system to let it know you want to do this sort of searching. And as you can see, there are 2 forward slashes. I like to think about it as putting the trademark in the basket. Or if you want to think about it a different way, you could think about entering into the multiverse, because things operate differently once you go between those forward slashes. It's not like it is out here in the real world. You go between those forward slashes, things get a little wild. All right, and that's a good thing because it's going to allow you more flexibility in constructing your search. But in order to do it, you have to go into that multiverse, right? And then when you're done, boom, you come back out again. So make sure you're putting your expression inside that basket. So if you wanted to, for example, look for a vowel in the place where you're spelling out the word trademark and you're not sure if it's spelled trademark, 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 right? Who knows, right? It could be spelled any of those different ways with a vowel. Well, what you can do is put inside the square brackets, A-E-I-O-U-Y, and it's going to tell the system, hey, system, find me either one instance of an A, an E, an I, an O, a U, or a Y. Right? That's all there is to it. You tell it what letters you want, you put it inside the square brackets, and the system's going to go find it for you. What if you just wanted to find a single character? You're like, ugh, I'm pretty sure there's a character here, but I don't know what it is. It could be a letter, it could be a number, maybe it's a symbol of some sort, right? Maybe it's a hyphen or an at or something, a symbol or something like that, right? So you can put in a dot or a period, right? And it is going to go look for that character, right? You could also, if you wanted to look for infinite characters, do a dot followed by an asterisk. And so what the system is going to do is it's going to say, okay, you asked for a character and the asterisk tells me you want infinite numbers of those. I'm going to look for infinite numbers of any characters. So as you can see there, they're on the left and the right side of the word trademark. That means you're going to look in infinite directions on either side of the word trademark. I like to think about it as jazz hands, right? So you go jazz hands, right? So on either side, it's going to look infinite in either direction for things that are connected to the word trademark on the left and right hand side, or on the outside parts of that wording. Okay, let me tell you another quick embarrassing story. That is when we were first getting trained on how to use the system, I looked at that and I was like, oof, I think there's something wrong here, because shouldn't those be symmetrical? On the left-hand side, shouldn't it be star dot? What's going on here? And of course, I was completely wrong. Of course, Jason, I don't know what I'm talking about. Not a coder, okay? And what you see there is actually correct. It looks weird. It's not symmetrical, which concerned me, but what you're doing there is you're telling the system, look for any character infinite numbers of times on the left-hand side, and then infinite numbers of characters on the right-hand side as well. That was a lot. That was a quick intro. Now we're going to go deep, okay? So what we're talking about here is the syntax that you use to tell the system, okay, now I want to go into the multiverse. So you signal it by putting the search term inside forward slashes. So what you've already learned about field tags is you do CM colon, and then you put in the basket, okay? You put the word trademark, or it could be any word that you want to search, right? It could be Jason, could be Marisa, Christina, Tim, right? Whatever word it is that you want to search, you put it inside the forward slashes, and that tells the system, okay, things are going to go a little wild here. Be ready, all right? And it's anything that's happening inside those forward slashes. A couple of notes, please don't put field tags inside, all right? Don't put that CM colon inside the forward slashes. No, 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 no. That is just for the wording that you want to search. Also, don't use any logical operators like your ands and ors and nots. Don't put any quotation marks inside there. Really, remember, you're looking for sort of more flexible stuff. So quote marks, not what you want. You want to look for alternate spellings and things like that. Quotation marks are not the way to look for alternate spellings. You'll also notice, and I know you've learned this already from the field tag searching webinar, CM or whatever field tag you're using, it's always in uppercase. And then as you can see, your search term is going to be in lowercase. Why that has to be, I don't have an answer for you. I'm assuming it has something to do with just the way the system was programmed. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so you are going to, now that you know, boom, you're going into the multiverse, okay? So the question becomes, how do you pattern match, right? We've already kind of seen it. What you do is you put the letters that you want to search for alternates of inside square brackets. Now, the cool thing is you can also use quantifiers to say that you want more than one. All right, you might want 2, you might want 3, you might want 4, you might want 0, who knows, okay? So you can use these quantifiers to plus up the thing that you're going to be searching. So if you take a look at the first row there in terms of your common vowel searches, that's the one we've already talked about. If you think, oh, there's probably going to be a vowel here, but I'm not sure which one it's going to be, you just put A-E-I-O-U-Y inside the square brackets, and it's going to find you one vowel. Now, as you can see right beneath that, if you're not sure if it has a vowel, maybe it has 1, maybe it has 0. I mean, think about, apps and software and whatever. Oftentimes the names of those things, they just remove the vowels. Okay, or they put in alternate vowels. Who knows, right? So you might want to tell the system, I think there could be a vowel there, but I'm not sure. So you can use the quantifier, which is going to be the curly braces, and you say, give me 0 or 1 vowel. And you go 0, 1. Again, why it's not 0-1 or 0:1 like it was in the old system, I don't know. That's the way it is in this system, so learn it, okay? But you could also do 1 to 2 if you wanted to. You could do 3 to 4, 4 to 9, whatever you want. I don't know why you would do that, but you could if you wanted to, right? So that's one way to go about telling the system, I think there's going to be 1 or 2 vowels here. I'm not sure what they are or the order that they come in. So give me anything that you can find in this situation where there might be 2 vowels, 1 or 2 vowels in a row. That's that bottom row right there. Now, it could be any order. So it could be YU, YO, it could be OI, it could be IE, same thing as EI or AU or anything like that, right? It's going to kind of jumble them up in there. So why would you use it? Well, here's some of the reasons, right? So if you look at the example in that second row, the white row there underneath the header for cat, kite, and fox, think about all the ways that the sound of fox could be spelled, right? It might be a C with an S, could be a K with an S, could be the X, could be 2 X's, could be QX, could be XQ, who knows, right? It could be any of those things. And so you want to find those alternate spellings in the system just in case it didn't get picked up and it shows up in the pseudo mark field. So as you can see, you could do inside the square CKQX, or if you're thinking, oh man, there might be 1 or 2 of these. Think about all the words that are spelled with a CK. Right? Then you might want to say, okay, I want to find those situations. Look, I had a typo in a previous session where I had 2 Ks in the word mark for whatever reason. Maybe someone when they were applying accidentally put 2 Ks in there when it should have been M-A-R-K and they typed in M-A-R-K-K, and you might want to find those times when there was that weird kind of alternate spelling. Well, the CKQX inside the square brackets followed by the curly brace 1, 2 is going to help you in that circumstance. So these are in the deck, so you can feel free to go back and check them out. I also have them here in the field tag searching with Regex handout. So for those of you who have taken the time to download that, you're going to see that in there as well. It's a great reference for you to go back when you're like, oh, what was Jason talking about? You can pull it up in the handout or pull it up in the deck to take another look. Now, here's where things are going to get a little bit different than what you learned about in regular old field tag searching. Now, I wish this wasn't the case. This is how it works. All right, you're going to have to learn a little bit of different stuff because when you're in the multiverse, things operate differently. Look, if you've seen everything everywhere all at once, sometimes your fingers are made of hot dogs. All right, that's what happens when you're inside the multiverse. And so the same thing is going to be true here when we're talking about our wildcards. So as you just learned in regular old field tags, if you say, I think there's going to be a character here, but I'm not sure which one it is, you can use a question mark. And a question mark is going to return you any single character in that particular spot in the word that you are searching. But if you enter into the multiverse, it's a little bit different. Here, the question mark becomes what I call a repeater. And so it's either going to find you 0 or 1 times of that particular character to the left of the question mark. All right. So if you're searching the word F-I-S-T, fist, and you're not sure if it's going to have an S in it or not, it could be fist or it could be fit, then you would do F-I-S question mark T, and the system is going to either delete out that S or include the S, right? So what if that's a situation where you're like, oh, there might be this character or there might not. I'm not sure. You could use a question mark and it's going to bite back in and potentially delete out that one character or keep it there. It's different. I know. What's also different is going to be the asterisk. So in regular old field tag searching, you can pop that asterisk on there and it's going to find you infinite characters. It's a little bit different when you're in the multiverse. When you're searching in regular expressions, there it's another repeater, and it's either going to bite back one or it's going to go infinite in the other direction. So that character is going to be repeated 0 to 1 times. I know it's odd, but that's the way it works, right? So, well, a lot of the time you're probably not going to use that asterisk on its own. Most of the time you're probably going to be using it with the dot or the period because it's going to use it to look for infinite numbers of any character in that spot. As you can see there, any character except for a space. And for those of you wondering, hey, when are we going to see the system? Don't worry, we're going to see it real soon, okay? I'm going to give you a demo of how all this operates, and we can type some words in there and see what happens and what sort of results we get. As you have already learned from regular field tag searching, the same stuff is pretty much going to be the case. You can connect stuff, various regular expression searches using your and or your and not. As you know from before, put them in uppercase. Me personally, I always like to yell them in my head, and that's a way for me to remember. But if you're using Search Builder, you don't have to worry about yelling them in your head because the system is automatically going to put them in uppercase for you. Also, just like in field tag searching, there are groupings. You can use groupings. That's okay. But in traditional groupings, a space equals an or. That's not the case in regular expressions. So if you were saying, oh, I want to find hip hop marks. And so based on what I've learned, wouldn't I just do this where I go /.* hip space hop */ No. Because that's not going to find you any trademarks. Let me show you. Okay, we've been talking about this for a little while. So we're going to go down here to Field Tag and Search Builder. We're going to open up the Search Builder. We know we want to be in the combined mark field, so we just pop that in there. And here we're going to type in our regular expression. Now, the example that I said does not work is what you see on your screen. So let's take a look at that where we're going to create our little basket, okay? I sometimes build this way where I'll create my little basket. And I know I want to look for stuff that has infinite to the left of the word hip. And we were going to do something like this where we wanted hip hop with words on either side or characters on either side. We hit build. Oh, I see it added in Some stuff. Okay, it wasn't supposed to, but it added in some quotation marks. That's interesting. I'll have to let the developers know about that. What it did here, this is what I was trying to show you. This is how it doesn't work. Okay, so what's happening here? This space is messing up the system. So instead, what you wanted to do, if you want to find things that have either the word hip or the word hop in them, then you would need to construct it differently using these groupings. So what you could do here is we would just do a dot star, right? What we're doing is we are putting our search terms inside the basket. So here we're going to have two baskets. Let's see, this should do it. And here we go. So now we're getting stuff that has the word hip or the word hop. Now the system is automatically going to be returning stuff that it thinks is most relevant. It's using its own sort of proprietary algorithm. So that's why you're going to see a lot of hip hop stuff up here at the top, but it's not actually giving you only hip hop things. You're going to get a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm just kind of scrolling down here. Look, we have like almost 2,000 pages of these things. Let me move forward a little bit. Right here, for example, in this trademark here, the reason this is coming up is because the word hop is in it, and so there's no hip hop in there. It's just finding stuff that has hop with an asterisk at the end, so we're getting hopscotch. Okay, same thing with hip, right? So we have scholarship, so it's getting stuff because it has stuff that it has the word hip. But it has stuff to the left of it. So you're not really getting the sort of thing that you might be looking for if you're trying to find stuff that has the word hip hop in it. Okay, so in this case, this is going to get you that stuff. It's not going to find you everything that you need, where instead you might want to think about doing some alternates to that, where you might do something like, and again, this is not exactly regular expression stuff, but I'm just going to kind of put it in here for you so you can see it. All right, so you could do some alternates here. So this is going to get you stuff where that has the word hip hop together. This is going to get you stuff that has the word hip space hop, or stuff that has hip hop, but there's something in between the hip and the hop. Right. And so you can go here, and here you're going to get more of your traditional hip hop stuff. You got your hip hop vegan, hip hop, hip hope, maybe hip hope, hip hop, saving hip hop world, and so forth. Right. So that's kind of how that would work. Just a little tiny digression. So just wanted to show you so you're aware, and you can see you can flip back and forth between regular expression searching and field tag searching. Doesn't really matter. It just depends on if you want to do phonetic equivalence or not. All right, so let's do a hypothetical. Those of you who have attended the Getting Started workshop, as well as the Field Tag Search workshop, you're going to say, oh, Jason, goober for surfboards again? Yes. And the reason we're showing you goober for surfboards again is so you can understand there are multiple ways to use this system depending on your skill level and how you want to go about it. Your results are going to be the same. So there's multiple ways to achieve the same goal. Right, so let's take a look and see how we would use the system if we were trying to do a clearance search, we wanted to register goober for surfboards, and we wanted to find those alternate spellings. I'm going to start us off here by just hitting the reset button. Personally, that's how I like to go about it because I want to clear everything out of the search history. If I don't, it's just going to continue to run and run and run. Those of you used to the old system knew there's like a timeout and I hit a certain number. Not really here. I wouldn't advise letting it run for a year or whatever, but it sort of makes sense to kind of reset when you're going to begin a new clearance search. So remember, goober for surfboards, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to field tag and search builder. You can, if you want to, go ahead and use this. We already know we want that combined mark field, which is going to get us word marks, pseudo marks, translations, transliteration, stuff that's in those fields. And what do we want to do? We want to search for alternate spellings of goober. Now, those of you who have attended before know there's already an alternate spelling of the word goober in here, which we might want to keep an eye out for. This is how we would find it. Karen. I know you were asking about it earlier. Okay. So what we would do is, again, you can create your basket, and then we're going to phonetically sound out the word goober and look through the things that we just learned for constructing this, right? Because that's how we do it. We build it phonetically. Now we know that we want to find stuff that is infinite to the left of the word goober. So we can start off with our dot star. That's going to find us infinite to the left of the word goober. Now, if we think phonetically about the word goober, we want to find the g, g, right? G, easy enough, right? No problem, got that covered. Now the ooh, what about the ooh sound? How do we spell ooh in English? Sometimes it's going to be O, maybe it's O by itself, maybe it's OO, maybe it's OOO, or maybe it's OU, maybe it's UO, maybe it's OUU, maybe it's UOU. We don't really know, right? So we want to find the g, the ooh sound. And so how do we go about that? Remember, we put the letters that we're looking for inside the square brackets. Here, we might want to do an O or a U. So if we just left it like that, it is just going to find us, infant to the left of g, g, right? And that's it. It's not going to necessarily find us ooh. It's going to find us go or guh. That's it. Well, that's not really what we're looking for. So we might want to look for a circumstance in which there's OOO, UUU, OUU, OUO, any sorts of like difference between O's and U's in 1, 2, or 3 instances of that. So that's going to give us the goo that we're looking for, right? And what comes next? B. So we're going to, how do we get the B sound? Well, we just simply pop in a B. Now, sometimes maybe it's two B's. Goob, goob, right? Maybe we would want to look for a circumstance where it's GOBB, and that would still kind of perhaps suggest the word goober. And so what do? We have our B. We know we want to find either 1 or 2 instances of the word B. So what do? We plus it up, right? We use our quantifier and we tell the system, give me 1 or 2 B's. So right now, you can see on the screen, we're going to find goob, right? Now we need to figure out that sound. How do we go about the in English? It's oftentimes going to be a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, Y. We put that inside the square, right? That's going to give us the vowel. Look, back in the old system, you had a way to just use the letter V, and it get you all those things. That doesn't exist in this current system. You have to tell it the letters or the numbers that you're looking for. So here we just type in A-E-I-O-U inside the square brackets, and we have gooba, which might be okay, right? Maybe that's all we want. We might, for one of our searches anyway, want to include that R in there. So this is going to get us goobar. Okay, and then we might close it out with another dot star so we can look infinite to the right of the word goobar. Okay, and so that's all we've done, right? We have it inside the in the basket, right? We're entering into the multiverse, and we have our alternate spellings of the word goober without hand jamming out all the different sorts of spellings that you might want to do. We can then hit the build button. It pops it up onto the top. We can hit the magnifying glass and look at this. We have 207, right? Now, if we take a real quick look at some of these, go bar, is that going to be a problem for us, our goober for surfboards? Well, we can always click on the little gray arrow here. We can take a real quick look at the goods and services. There's a lot of stuff here for smokers and for cigarettes and pipes and whatnot. Is that going to be an issue for us? I don't know. By the way, again, always like to search in expert mode. I hadn't been, but I always like to. And this is why, because I can use the tagging right here. And then we have go borg or go bar. I don't really know. Go bar. Maybe that's going to be something that we want to take a look at. So we're going to tag it because as we can see right here, it's for headwear, tops, so clothing, so shirts and stuff like that, and online retail store services featuring apparel. Is that going to be an issue for us where our surfboards? I don't know. We might want to look into the relatedness of it. So we could go through and do all that. We're seeing a lot of dead stuff in here. Maybe we don't want to look at that dead stuff anymore. We just want to focus on the live things. So we can do what we learned about in the last session about field text is we can nut out the dead. And the way that we do that is we just pull up the live dead indicator, LD. It's on live. That's what we want. We want live marks. We hit build. It adds it to the top. We hit the magnifying glass, and boom, now we're down to 76. And so again, this is way more manageable. Probably going to go through los ingobernables de Japón for various clothing and things like that. Is that going to be a problem for a goober for surfboards? You know, you have to make that call. Goober pick. Oh, there's the word goober. That might jump out at us. So we'd want to go and look, okay, well, you know, various things here with third-party retailers, packaged food and drink, snacks, vitamins, nutritional supplements, things like that. If that's something we think it might be an issue, we might want to tag it Yogo Berry, Gobers, Kugo Barney, Ego Berry Home, Go Birth, Boo Goo Bird, Goober. Ooh, a goober, right? We might want to take this one out. Are these things related to surfboards? You know, I don't know. We'd want to look in and research whether we think those things would be related or not. And so that's how kind of you go through looking at the results, conducting that likelihood of confusion analysis. Here we see goober for plush toys. Is that going to be a problem for us? They're both in 28, but the fact they're both in class 28, surfboards and plush toys, that doesn't automatically trigger a likelihood of confusion refusal. We're going to want to do more research. Do companies that make plush toys also make surfboards? Or in the alternate, do companies that make surfboards also make plush toys? I don't know. We'd want to do some research to find that out. All right, so that's an easy way to conduct this regular expression search. Now, you may be in a circumstance where you're saying, hey, 76, that's fine. But honestly, Jason, I want to go a little more narrow and I want to look at those coordinated classes. Again, we understand, Jason, you were telling us, you're not telling us that if things are coordinated classes, they're going to be related. We understand you're not saying that at all. But one way to think about coordinated classes is in some ways it's kind of level hack for oftentimes they're going to be potentially related because things that are in those international classes are often found to be related. Not a guarantee. It's a good way to sort of your brain thinking about potential things that could be. We already know that surfboards are in class 28 where sporting goods are. And so all we have to do here is we can use CC, or we could start typing in the word coordinated. It's going to come up. And then we type in the number 028. And then we hit build. It adds it up to the top. We can see we hit that magnifying glass, and now we're down to 36. Okay, so we can go down this way. Right? We have Goober, again, for our art supplies, Goober for our plush toys, RG27. Now, this is kind of interesting. Some of you might be looking at this like, Jason, how in the world is that pulling that, right? Good question. My guess is it's probably in the pseudo mark field. I'm not sure if we'll be able to find it or not, but we can go ahead and select that. And it's going to, why did it not do it? Oh, I guess I'm signed out. Okay. Anyway, so this is RG27 right here. We can look in the mark information. All right. So you might have a hard time seeing this because, all right. So we're seeing this, the name, it identifies Rudy Gobert, right? So it might be pulling this information here up in RG. And so it's tagging that and thinking, oh, this is a GOBER, right, is what we're also going to find, because this is going to find us GOBER. Okay, so that's why we're getting some different sorts of things. Now, this is another kind of cool thing too here. You see this blue line that has appeared on the left-hand side of that tile. That lets you know that in this particular search, you've looked at that result. So you might be going through, looking at these, this is the one that Karen had knocked out or looked at earlier, this GUUBER. And you come in here to TSDR, take a look at it, and you're seeing, wetsuits for surfing. Are wetsuits related to surfboards? Maybe. What about bathing suits, bathing trunks? Are those going to be? What about swimwear? Are those going to be related to surfboards? Maybe a pretty good chance. We might want to tag this puppy because we want to take a look at it later, do a little bit more research. Okay? So that's how you could do it if you wanted to narrow down to the coordinated class. Now, the great thing about Search Builder and things like that is you don't have to always use it. You can even edit in the line up here. So we know, hey, we don't want to go, we don't want to look at all the coordinated class stuff. We just want to kind of narrow down to class 8. Wanted to filter down this way. And I remember what you told us about 35 to the retail and what used to be the retail miscellaneous class. And so all you have to do is you can edit it right here in the bar itself, which is pretty cool. You can change it over to, for example, IC, which is international class. And then it's for your 35, which is where retail is, 42, kind of where it used to be. And then your ABs for your certification marks and 200 for your collective marks. Look at this, it's going to pull it down all the way to 17. And then we can go through and take a look at these. Bango Berry, is that going to be a problem for us? Go Burn Hot, Gubernator, Goober Games, is this going to be a problem for us? Ooh, what if it's a game about surfing? Is that potentially a problem for us? I don't know. We'll have to do a little bit of more research and figure out whether it's a potential issue, things like that. Okay, so that's how you'd kind of go through and look. And if you wanted to go even more in depth, you could absolutely do that. So we were talking about that in the other one. So if you wanted to just look at surf-related goods, you could. Again, this is not recommended. Okay, this is going very, very narrow, and you're going to miss stuff that's potentially wording like bathing suits and things like that. You would potentially have missed this goober one if it didn't have wetsuits for surfing. It wouldn't have found it, right? And is goober for swimming? What is it? Swimwear? Going to be related to goober for surfboards? Potentially, right? So you'd want to look for that, but you wouldn't necessarily see it if you went all the way down into goods and services. And this is why here in the Trademarks Customer Outreach team, we often recommend not going down to goods and services. You can if you want to, but don't make that the only thing that you do. You could think about it if you wanted to work on narrowing your search down as you get more and more specific because you really want to make sure you've seen everything. Cool, fine, yeah, go for it. But we never recommend that as the first step ever, and certainly not the only step that you do. So that's how it works, right, for something like Goober. All right, so what I also want to do is show you some additional things that you can do using regular expressions. So we kind of talked about the repeaters earlier, right? The asterisk and the question mark, they function differently inside the multiverse than they do when you're outside the multiverse. Now, the third one down there, the third example is kind of a great one. Let me show you how that works. And we can use our Goober example. I'm going to clear out some of this stuff over here. Okay. And you see this right here where we have B and we have the quantifier of 1 or 2. What if there's 3 B's? This isn't going to find 3 B's. Maybe it picks up because the correct spelling is in the pseudomark field, but we don't know necessarily. So what you might want to do in the circumstance, instead of using the curly brace 1, 2, you can just use a plus. And again, it's going to plus it up, right? And it's going to find infinite numbers of that exact same character. So it's going to find this wording spelled with 1B, 2Bs, 3Bs, 4Bs, 5Bs, and infinite. Okay, we can go ahead and do that search. We're probably going to get, 76, which is basically what we had last time as well. Maybe there's a difference or two. I don't know. I don't remember the exact number. We could probably find it. So we had 76 here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, 76. We're really kind of finding the same thing, but this is a way to save yourself some keystrokes. And, just in case there's a situation where there's like 3 of that particular letter that happen to be out there. So keep that in mind. It's a kind of a fun one and an easy way to go about stuff. So a couple of things to remember, drop downs. Your quotation marks are no-go, okay? Because when you're using drop-downs like word mark, I'm not sure if general search does it or not, but for those of you doing clearance search trying to use word mark, do not put stuff in quotes thinking that it's going to give you exactly what this phrase is inside the quotes. I understand maybe that's the way it works with Google or Yahoo or Bing, whatever search engine you might happen to use. That is not how it works in our system, okay? If you want to do exact phrase searching, you have to be in field tags to do it. That's not really a regular expression thing, it's a field tag thing. So if you wanted to do something like, for example, Marisa was showing us something, or maybe Christina was showing us like Goober Madness, I think is what it was, right? So what you could do here, you could do that. Notice, these are straight quotes. They are not curly quotes. And the reason that I bring that up is because the system has a hard time with non-ASCII 2 characters and it ignores them. So if you want the system to make sure it's paying attention to your quotation marks, make sure you have your smart punctuation turned off. Okay, it turns out there's nothing in there for goober madness necessarily. That doesn't mean the system isn't working, just means there aren't any trademarks that are goober madness. All right, so you can use quotes in order to get yourself an exact phrase. If you want to do a range search, this is like a pretty cool thing. There might be some of you out there who are wondering, what's the best way for me to see what trademarks registered in the year 2023? You know, you're not necessarily going to be doing that for a clearance search, but there's some of you out there who want to do research, or you're just generally interested in trademarks and want to know what's happening, or maybe you want to narrow something down. I know that Coca-Cola registered a slogan in the years between 1950 and 1970. I don't want to look at any of the modern stuff. I only want to see stuff that that was registered in that range. Cool, you can do that, no problem, using the square brackets and the to. So you can see the example there on the right-hand side, and RD is the registration date. And so you could run a search, which is going to find you that. So I don't know, let's do that. Okay, let's do that. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we know we're going to find stuff. We want to find stuff that is Coca-Cola. You know what? Here, let me do it this way, so you can actually see Search Builder in action. Let me reset here real quick. All right, so we can see Search Builder doing its thing. So we know we want to find Coca-Cola in the owner field, right? Or here the owner name, and then we just type in Coca-Cola. So it's going to get us, we're going to build that. And then we also know that we want to find stuff that was registered. And so we could do reg, and we're going to see registration date. And as you can see here, this is going to give us, you can use the little calendar here if you want to. Maybe it's not going to give me all the way back. Oh, here we could go this way. All right. So let's just say between 1944, we'll go January of 44, and we'll go to, I don't know. I'm sorry, it's not doing what I wanted it to. 1944, January 1st. Okay. And then we want to go to, we'll just do 1967 because it's right here. All right. Oh, actually, we'll do December. That'll be the full year. December 31. Okay, so this right here is going to do it. We hit build, and as you can see here, it's given us that range just like we saw on the PowerPoint slide. So this is going to give us any Coca-Cola trademarks that registered between January 1st, 44 and December 31st of 1967. I have no idea what those things might be. Oh, and we don't want to look at necessarily the dead stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that out real quick here. And here we go. You can see there were 13 trademarks that registered during those years. Apparently, Fanta and Tab, right? We got a Barks and stuff like that. It doesn't look like there were necessarily any of the slogans that were registered during that time. So that's kind of an interesting thing you can do, and you can just you're more than welcome to just fool around in the system and find stuff. So this is also kind of neat down here at the bottom, the tilde. Which is, if you look on your PC keyboards anyway, it's on the top left there above the tab, maybe underneath the ESC, the escape key. And if you hit shift and then that little mark, you're going to get the little tilde. And as you can see there on the right hand side, it's going to help you with sort of proximity searching. You can say, find me stuff that's within 3. And it's going to be transposing things as well as finding spaces for things. So that's an interesting thing. You know, we could do what you see on the screen, or we could do a sort of a different one. How about we do something like CM colon rain shine, and then the tilde and 3. And so we're going to find anything that has stuff that's rain, shine, shine, rain, rain and shine. Here we go. There's rain and shine, rainer shine, rain-o shine. And so forth. So you can see a lot of stuff that, you know, has this come rain or shine. Come rain, we shine, right? So you can see how the proximity searching can work for those of you looking to do that sort of stuff. This is if you want to go super advanced. This is our kind of a really cool thing. We call it the pipe. Maybe other people call it that too. I know internally we refer to it as the pipe. You might remember that when you go into the multiverse, you cannot use the or operator or the and not. Those don't work inside the multiverse, but you can use a character instead. So instead of using that space, you could use the character instead. So as you can see there on the right hand side, what that's going to find you is ABC or XYZ. So that's an easy way to like save yourself some keystrokes and things like that. And the and not, you can read it right there. Probably not going to get a whole lot of use, but I wanted to make it available to you so you know how to use it. The other thing that I wanted to show you is, and because sometimes we get this question, hey, what if my trademark has some sort of character like that plus? Jason, you just showed me I could go B plus and it's going to get me infinite numbers of B's in a row. Well, what if my trademark has a plus in it? How do I search that? Well, you can see it on the screen in front of you. Those are called reserved characters. And so if you want to search for one of those reserved characters, the way you do it is you tell the system, hey, I want to come out of the multiverse into reality and then go back in again. So as you can see, all you have to do is use the backslash instead of the forward slash. That's one way to go about it if you only want to use one keystroke. Personally, I think it makes it clearer if we're using the square brackets. So as you can see on the right-hand side here, let's say we wanted to look for Disney Plus trademarks. Then what we could do is we enter the multiverse, we say Disney, and we could either do a backslash and then the plus, which means it's going to take you out for one time and then bring you back in the multiverse. I think it's easier to use the square brackets because otherwise I'm going to get lost in the forward is it back. I don't really know. Again, not a coder. Okay, so it trip me up. So personally, I like to use it inside the brackets. So let's take a peek at that so you can see what that looks like. I'll just go ahead and delete this out up here. And remember, if we want to go in the multiverse, we put it inside the forward slashes, right? With the trademark in the basket. So we could do something simple like this if we wanted to, and that's of course going to get us Disney Plus. All right, we got 3 of these anyway. We have Disney Plus, Disney Plus, Disney Plus. And again, we're in the multiverse here. So if you wanted to, you could do various things with this. Maybe you wanted to do an I or a Y in case there's die, and then maybe it could be an S or a Z. You could do that. Maybe you wanted to look for infinite ends right there, and this EI or EY at the end. Maybe it's going to be instead we're going to do an E or an I, right? And we could do 1 or 2 of those, and that's going to get us Disney Plus, right? There's probably not going to be any real difference between, yeah, there's just going to be 3 of those. But keep in mind, this is the way you can go about looking for those phonetic equivalents of the I, or in this case, the I sound, the S sound, the N sound, and so forth. So these are all sort of interesting and fun things that you can do once you feel comfortable using the system. And for those of you who have been attending these trainings and you understand Search Builder, you're probably going to want to graduate yourself to using regular expressions pretty soon. And so this is one way to go about it. All right, so we are almost to the end here. I see we're almost literally to the end. So a couple of quick takeaways here. Just keep in mind, you do not ever, ever, ever have to use regular expression searching. If you got frustrated or overwhelmed by this 2 minutes in, I apologize. That's my fault. But this is something, again, you can do if you want to. You can spend some time learning how to use it. There's lots of information available for you in the help, but it does give you a more efficient way to search the system to get those alternate spellings and phonetic equivalents, which could be a block to your application. If you want to enter the multiverse, right, to trigger that regex, then you use forward slashes, put your search term inside those forward slashes. Remember, your field tags and your operators are always going to be in an uppercase and your search term in a lower. Please don't use quotation marks inside the regex or use the and or and not inside of a regex search. So I can see on the clock we have about 6 minutes left. So if there are any questions that I can answer that, look, my guess is Tim Schimpf answered all of the questions that came in during the time. But Marisa, is there anything that I can help out with that came in?
How about I get off mute? Maybe we can talk about, I know that someone in one of our other sessions did ask about what in the world does sorting by relevance mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean and how, how could you use that? How should
Sure.
you use that tool?
Yeah, great question. So here what we'll do real quick. Let me just do a. There you go, Coca-Cola. I'm going to feature your product today. This is not an endorsement. This is for educational purposes only.
Thank you.
So here we go. We're going to take a look at some Coca-Cola trademarks here. So the sort feature is over here on the left-hand side. And one of you had asked the question about relevance. So what's happening here is the search system is doing what it thinks is going to be the most relevant to you. And so it's going to use its algorithm to determine what it thinks you might want to look at.
Mhm.
Keep in mind, relevance does not equal relatedness. So, when you do a Google search or a Yahoo search or a Bing search, whatever, it's again, the algorithm's going to throw you up at the top. It's going to weight things to what it thinks is the most relevant to you. This is similar to that, but again, it is not the same thing as relatedness. So don't look at this and be like, I looked at the top three, looks like I'm good. That is not what is happening here. It is taking a look at how many times that wording appears inside the record itself, how many times the record, that wording appears at all. If it's popping up in a field where there's lots of wording, it's going to be less weighted, and when compared to when it's the only word that is inside a particular field. So it's doing its sort of own thing. What you might want to do instead, if you're like, this is confusing me, you can use any of these over here. You could go by word mark, right? So this is going to go alphabetical A to Z, and obviously you could go the other way, Z to A if you wanted to, and take a look. You could also go by class. Perhaps not necessarily as helpful because remember, relatedness does not depend on class, but it might be that you are doing something where it's going to be it's a chemical, right? I want to see stuff that has chemical in it, right? Which is going to be in like class 1 or something. So you might want to go that way. That could be helpful. Serial number is also a great way to go about it. This is going to, when you go 0 to 9, it's going to give you the oldest stuff first, right? So if any of you ever wanted to take a look at what is apparently the oldest Coca-Cola trademark in our database, this is going to be it right here. As you can see, applied 1892, registered in 1893. So when you sort it that way, this is going to be oldest to newest, and obviously if you go the other way, it's going to be newest to oldest. So it's really going to be up to you. A lot of our longtime searchers, those who remember the old search system, it would typically come in. The results would come in most recent to or newest to oldest. So you could choose to sort it that way if you wanted to, but it's really going to be kind of up to you what you want to do if relevance isn't working for you. Great question.
Okay, I'm looking at the clock. Do you want to try to push and do a few more, or would you like
Ooh.
to? Yeah, we're running out of time
We're running out
today.
of time. I always want to answer questions. You know me.
I
Let's try and
know.
get one more in there.
Okay, how about this? We've talked a bit about searching with field tags earlier.
Mhm.
Does that asterisk work the same? If you use the asterisk when you're searching with field tags in expert mode, does it work the same in the when you're using regular expression?
It does not.
It does
S-
not. Okay.
It does not. It is going to do something
Mhm.
different. Okay. So here, if we were to do this Coca-Cola, right? We see this, it works just fine doing that. But if you go inside regular expressions, if you were to put it inside the basket,
Right.
it's not going to do that. I don't actually know what it's going to do. Yeah, it's not going to give us anything.
Anything, right?
If you wanted to achieve the same thing of looking at infinite to the left, infinite to the right, you would want to do a dot star
Hmm.
because that is going to say, hey, system, give me infinite, any character in the world to the left and infinite, that's what the dot is. Okay,
Right.
right? And so it's going to do the same thing here. We're going to get your 188. So this right here in regex is what I call a repeater. And so in this case, what it's going to do is it's going to look for stuff that has COCA-COL or COCA-COLA or COCA-AAAAAA and so forth, right? So it's going to bite down a little bit into the trademark. So this is going to be kind of similar, but there's not a circumstance. The reason it was given us nothing is because there wasn't a situation because there was something to the left of it. So they are going to operate differently. So just be aware.
Right. So that's something, right. Be aware just so because it can be frustrating if you're trying to find something and you're not using the right tools. So we want to be sure that you have all the tools in your arsenal to handle these searches. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And
We
speaking of
got
tools,
mm,
speaking of tools, right?
okay.
Handouts, folks, and also the help. I know you've already seen the help a little bit today. I'm going to highlight so you can get to it from the regular homepage here for search. Also, it's always up here. Now, me personally, my preference is for a link to always open in a new tab. I've been told, however, Jason, people understand that you can right click on a tab in order to get it to do what you want to do. So you have to choose that if you want it in a new tab. I find that more helpful, so it's not going to cover up what I just did. But you can take a look at the trademark search right here. So you've already seen a lot of this stuff. Under the advanced tab is where you're going to find for you experienced searchers out here, this is where you're going to find the money, okay? This is where you're going to find all the stuff that you need, whether it's a complete list of search fields, which is searchable right here. We didn't even talk about some of the enhanced stuff. Oh my goodness,
I
it's time. We got to go, Marisa, but I would stay here for another hour talking about some of the enhanced stuff. And for irregular expressions is going to be right down here. So everything that we talked about today, including, hey, how does this work in regular expression once I enter the multiverse? It's all going to be right here in the help. So be sure to check that out, folks. Even the reserved character stuff is here as well. So, oh, so much stuff to cover. I'm sorry we didn't get to more of it today, but feel free to read in there, and you'll become an expert in no time.
Okay. Well, I'll let you close us out. Jason,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
You are welcome. Thanks. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate you tuning in, learning about how to get started, how to do field tag searching. Hopefully, you learned some stuff about how to do some regular expression searching as well, if you want to take advantage of those phonetic equivalents. The other thing that I will tell you, and I know it's been mentioned multiple times today, how to get to this stuff. You can go through it here through our search our trademark database. You can find the links. We have the links to handouts right here in the center. And of course, the links to the recordings. What we're recording right now will soon replace what is up there currently. That'll happen with over the next couple of weeks. So the new stuff will be up there soon. And the other thing I always want to point out is under the events, underneath learning and resources, there's always so much that is happening at the USPTO, whether it's trademarks, whether it's patents, all sorts of different things. So make sure you go and check out the events tab or just bookmark it so you always have it handy. You can find it some really cool stuff. Hey, you experienced folks out there. We have something coming up on the 25th, which is about IDs, right? Identification changes and classification changes for 2024. So make sure you register for that and come join. There will be CLE credit, so make sure to check that out. All right, folks, we are now 2 minutes over. Apologize for keeping you. I want to be respectful of your time, so thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.